create a plot or quest or whatever that gets keep players interested, that really, not in your country, you're not in the U.S., I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you're here from wherever you are. Oh, so you couldn't send me an email address and I couldn't send you a PDF? Because the audio portion of the event will be on my Discord. So, yeah. So if you can, of course, your time schedule is way different from mine. So you'd have to look at your clock to see what the time should be. But if you have an email address, I should be able to drop you a PDF. So, look into that. I've actually got some friends and fans. Okay. Oh, okay. 7 p.m. there now. Well, it's 11 p.m. here, but it's Friday. Are you still on Friday? Because I know the international dateline somewhere out there. No, it's not Friday. What am I saying? It's Tuesday. So what day of the week is it there? Is it also Tuesday? I think so. Oh, it's Wednesday. Okay, so you are past the international dateline. So you'd have to take that into account. I'm in the Pacific time zone, so you'd have to figure out what the schedule would be for you. If my event is at 10 a.m., then it'd be 4 hours early. Wow, that would be, 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, sounds like. Have to look at that. If it is, that's still cool. That's early enough in the morning. You give you great justification to be up on a Sunday morning. And it's only going to take probably an hour to 2 hours. So we'd still be done by, 9 o'clock your time? 8 or 9? Just thinking. That's right. Anyway. Well, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I'll tell you what. Even if you jump into our Discord whenever you get up, I will go ahead and honor this offer. So if you're able to be in during the broadcast time frame while I'm on Discord, and I'll send you the Discord link when we get done today, and then you can hop in and join us audibly, and I'll send you the link through that. You like Discord, or you don't like Discord? Or is that a problem? I don't know Leet speak, so I have no idea what the exclamation point means. Is that a good thing? Oh, there you go. There you go. So, there you go. So, that sounds good. We'll definitely do that. Oh, I don't even know how to do that. You have to realize that because I have to say, my son declared himself older than me when he turned 18, and that was 20 years ago. So I have always considered myself to be 17. So, and I don't think I look nearly as old as I really am. I will be 60 this year. So, okay. So map maker, hexographer, and I think it's under actually the name worldographer now. WORLDOGRAPHER. Worldographer. And it's set up to create maps a lot of different ways. And then there's a second one that I used. Trying to think what the other one is called. But it's the other one's an art more artsy. It doesn't have the literalist approach. The hexographer one is literally mapping out in hex grid fashion, like the way mappers, right, role-play mappers used to do on paper. And therefore, it can populate the fields with resource random numbers and such. So I use it for that purpose. So yes, that you're exactly right. The best part of game mastering is reacting to the players, and what's really particularly funny about that is that once you learn a couple of key mechanisms, then the rest of your questions about plot and stuff will. Okay, I think Worldographer is the brand. I think Hexographer is one of their products. I think because Hexographer was the program I originally purchased, and then they advised me that Worldographer now covered both of them. So Worldographer is what I'm currently using. And there's 1,000 out there. There's Campaign Cartographer, another big one. Of course, if you're playing a lot of online games, Roll20 has its own built in. The real key is what works for you, what mechanism you use. If I pulled up my map, which I'm not going to do at this point, but if I pulled up my map, it's roughly 13,800 hexes. About the same size as 3 pieces of graph paper taped together, and they're okay, good. Yeah, DA is a good problem. Dungeon Alchemist is a good program. I use Tailspire because it's got a little bit more of a 3D effect to it. And as far as regional maps, so here we go back to the story. When I was about 16, 15, 16, 17, late 70s, I was tired of players. I would write up a map. I'd spend days and days creating the maps of the locations and what was all there and what lived where, and it bugged me that every time I'd do that, the players would find the edge of the map and walk away. They just somehow instinctively they would know that the direction you're trying to guide them to is a dangerous place. They wanted to go anywhere else. So I decided in the 77, 78. That I had enough of that. So I mapped the entire world. So I literally have a map with every physical space on the physical plane of Nycos is mapped out so that wherever they go, whichever direction they go, they end up someplace that I have details on. So there's no longer a edge of the map to walk to. It may not be the direction that I had in planned. It may not be the monsters that I had in my miniatures kit for the day, but they're still within the frame of the world that I have, and I know what's going on everywhere. So it makes it a little bit easier to use. See, Roll20 was okay, but the problem with Roll20 and most of them is that they are about driving revenue to the company that is supporting you, and that's counterintuitive. If, for example, Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to be coming out with their own, and if their own mechanism that they come out with is really easy to use and there is no charge for anything, then they will win fans forever because people will play with the product. They'll even buy a product once they know that they don't have to. It's that drive to the dollar that incenses and drives them crazy. So Roll20 is a burden. Yeah. Right. Yep. Exactly. That's fair. Now, since I've always played, or as long as I can say I've been a player or a game master, I have operated in theater of the mind, and so my live players get the benefit of miniatures and such. But otherwise, my players get the advantage of overall visuals of the countryside of the city. I'll say I put up a map or a descriptive piece of art or whatever. But that's as far as it goes. The rest of the game is played in the mind's eye and on the mental surface instead of the tabletop surface. So, that's true. Well, that goes back to you have to have a really strong awareness of what's where. And if you are new and you're building your maps and you've got new monsters and you don't know what all their capabilities are, yeah, it's hard to interpolate. So I get that. As a player, of course, it is considerably easier, but you still have to do what I think is the best part of a theater of the mind game is the back and forth banter that's required for the players to come up to speed on what you're actually doing. So you have to give them a description, you have to give them a narrative, you have to wait for feedback to make sure that they are on the same page with you on where they are and what they're doing. And that entire process brings the two minds, the players and the storyteller, closer together to achieve a satisfactory outcome. And so, oh yeah, you can write down, yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have found if you're able to get a camera that you can point down to your playing surface, you're far better to buy some of the battle mats books that are available. I have two giant ones and they take up a quarter of a play space on a table. And so I can lay out 2 books worth of terrain, and it's got everything. If it's a forest, it's got where the trees are located, it's got where the bridge is, and all of that physically on the map. So I can do the narrative storytelling about where the bad guys are. The players then take up their positions on the map, and then I place the bad guys, and then we play through on the miniatures table, and therefore the online community gets to see that from above. As a matter of fact, I've got videos of my my COVID and pre-COVID adventures are actually on this channel. So on this, I'm not on Discord, I'm not on Twitch, but on my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel is at NycosRPG. So if you go to at NycosRPG on YouTube, you can find the adventures that I ran. And the majority of them were theater of the mind because my players would take one look at the map layout and go, no, we're not going there. And so they would take off in another direction. But therefore the, yep. Okay, so I'm gonna here's a big secret for you. Make sure you're searching your maps for those that are royalty free or under commons, so that you don't have any problem with it. And as long as you attribute to the players who it is that drew you the maps, then you can use any of and all of them for your maps and call them yours. Because the way Creative Commons rules work is that unless you are actually trying to make money by selling their physical maps. Yep. So just don't worry about making your own, because I'll tell you what I did. One of the best things I ever did. I love the design of the city of Waterdeep as far as its mechanical structure, the way they built the protections around the ports, and the way the island chain associates with the city itself, and the names of the wardens of the city and stuff. I loved all of that. But the city I was building it for was on the east coast and was on the southern end of a peninsula, not the northern end. And so I just turned the map over. My players didn't even notice. I mean, I printed the map and I made sure to blot out the name of Waterdeep in particular. I know it's not, this was all for non-pay events, but that map worked wonders because all of the places, even the names worked because I came up with stories on why the south quarter was north of the north quarter. You know, there's the reason for that, and that's because the north quarter used to be the northern post point in the city, but they were invaded from the south, and the southerners all wrapped around them, and so they still speak of the north quarter, even though it's behind them. So that's the way I get away with that kind of thing. So, and it doesn't matter what you know. What I'm trying to say is that when you're homebrew, when you decide you're doing your own world, anything and everything, especially if you're running at a home game and you're never going to go anywhere with publishing, you're never going to go anything with writing. If you're doing it just for yourself, go to town. Take any map you want, reappropriate it, rename the places. Don't even have to change out the monsters if you don't want to. Just, it's yours now. And therefore, explain to build into it how it got to be that way for yourself, So don't feel like you have to say, well, that location is that location. So, for example, you say Waterdeep, I say Eldrasar. Eldrasar is that map. And yes, everything's changed. The concept of who's running the town has changed. The government's changed and all of that. But the basic mechanical map of the city is what I use it for. And when it comes down to it, when you're playing through a combat scenario, you only have to use what you decide to use of that map. Maybe it only happens on 2 street corners, and therefore the whole map isn't even part of it. So, therefore, Strigley and anybody else who's watching, all you need to do is decide which pieces you like, and then cobble together for yourself a relative positioning compared to other things that you like that you've also incorporated. And that's only so that the players can feel a purchase on the ground of where things are. So if, let's say, another great module is the Village of Hamlet. It hasn't been in print for years, so I don't think you can find it anywhere. And it may have actually been incorporated into Temple of Elemental Evil because it was a small town that was near the start of the Temple of Elemental Evil series. But that little town was the little town that my party started in all the time for probably 6 years, because it was something I picked up early during the second iteration, and throughout that period of time the players kept coming from one town because I'd have to keep restarting because I moved so often. I've said before in videos I've moved 40 times before I was 18. I went to 22 different grade schools and 6 different high schools across 11 different states. And so, like Johnny Cash, I've been everywhere, man. And in that process, there have been a lot of people. All told, I think I've had more than 12,000 people play in role-playing games at my table. I was involved actively in the tournament and games convention cycles from roughly 1992 until 2007. And then I switched and worked for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card brand and worked with trading card business for a while. Okay. Yeah, that's a cool new one. I haven't run it. Matter of fact, I haven't actually run a branded campaign since 2000. I think in 2014, I ran an Adventure League campaign for Tomb of Annihilation. Okay, great point. Your concern is that players seem to min-max, making their characters really powerful and as broken as they think they can, although the party seems okay with it. Okay, so watch this. Watch my lips on this one. The numbers on their character sheets do not matter to you. Now I'm going to say that, and players around the world are going to comment. If this video makes it out there, if somebody clips this portion and puts it out there, I will have players screaming at me for this one. But the numbers on the character sheets don't matter because the story is more important than the players. I know. So let's up for a minute. The story is more important than the players. And if you are not running a game, there won't be players at your table. And if you don't run a game, those players won't have anybody to play with. Because if we all stopped running tomorrow, they wouldn't have anything to play. And that is, remember the point I made earlier, is that there is a drastically reduced number of game masters out there. And the better you are as a game master, the higher there is a demand for you. That's why I always advocate to find ways to get paid to play, to run games in some fashion or other. So, for example, I have a sometimes sponsor, Board Games Paradise, that pays me so many dollars per hour. Actually, not so many dollars per hour. So many dollars per player that I entertain, and that money is therefore given to me not as cash, but as credit towards making purchases in the store, and that causes me to not spend as much. Okay, so when you say getting worse because players are using AI chat, okay, so now we come to the nut of it. If you're going to be a game master and you're going to create original content, then competing with a robot is not really a problem. And what I mean by that is if people came to play a game that was written by a machine that is only a mechanical die rolling mechanism, then they are not getting the full value of what you do as a game master. And so there will be people that will do that. They already do that. It's called paying for a video game. Like I said, I'm getting myself in all kinds of trouble if my videos ever get actually seen. I'm kind of outspoken on this stuff, but a person who plays in a video game is playing against a machine already, and he's playing against that machine who's already doing all the adjudication of a game master. So you are stepping in, you're picking up a tune, a mechanism that only exists in that realm, and you're playing through it by their rules, and therefore when you get done with it, there's no net increase in either your experience as a player or the computer programmer as a programmer, because there is no interconnection. So yes, that's true, but it's deeper than that, and I'll try to explain why. If a person uses an automated program to generate text, you can generate text all day long that's going to sound like whoever. You can have it write modules worth of data. You can just, if you wanted to. But doing that defies the purpose of a story. And this is when you were asking earlier about what you have to do to make your plot or your game interesting to people, is you have to show them that it's not that it's not created by somebody else, that it's something that uniquely comes from you, and they can only get that experience when they're at your table. I have written modules. I have written close to 1,000 modules, I suppose, in the last 10 years alone. Okay. So thank you for asking that question. What's the order that you create a homebrew in? First of all, you have to come up with a setting. And that literally is the place you're going to start. So you're going to begin at the beginning. You're not going to look at what your end goal is. You're not going to look for a big bad. You're not going to look for what the cool adventures are in the area. I want you to give a definition for your home. What is it that the players are calling home? What is their relationship to each other in that home? Are they actually living in the same place, or are they communal? Yeah, they're home. The character's home. The reason why I want you to do this tiny exercise is that it's the first step to getting past ROLL, role-playing, back to ROLE, playing. No, not their backstory home, their home. Where are they based? What is their location? They can't be traveling always. It can be either or both. This is why my first recommendation is always to have a session 0. Bring all your players that you're going to have play in your game to the table and say, guys, I have a story I want to tell. Don't tell them what it is. I have a story I want to tell, and I want to know what kind of a story you want to hear. And let them tell you what kinds of things they want to experience. Now, there's a ton of ways they can respond. One way might be purely mechanistic. I want to start as a fighter, I want to go 3 levels of this, and then I want to add that, and all these min-maxing kind of reasons they want to do it. They're halfway through Dragons of Stone. Right. Sure. Where does Stormwreck Isle have their base? In the story, where are they living? Where do they sleep at night? What do they do on the days that you're not running? Are you running every day? Because unless you're doing daily activities for every day they are alive, they do exist in that fantasy world somehow. That's the question I'm asking. Where are they? What do they do when you're not running the story? Do they just patiently wait for you to restart? Is it literally breath by breath? Because I can tell you that it will burn you out as a game master to run like that. You're going to be so fatigued when you have to think about literally anything that they would. Because when do they do laundry? Do they take showers? Do they bathe at all? When does that happen? What if you're in the middle of a monster run and all of a sudden you get a case of the runs? These are all things that you as a game master would have to be figuring out for them. It's a level of insanity to go that direction. So a better question is to just back away, step back for half a second. You feel that it's looking too much into it? I think it's not looking enough into it because the day by day is what the game is only talking about. So I'm just saying step back. What is it they're doing? Where are you? Why? I mean, where's Stormwreck Isle? Is it near a city? Is it a long way from a city? Can you get there by ship? Can you get there by airship? These are all questions you kind of ask yourself. You want to see. Oh, it's up to you. It's really up to you. So if you want the game to pause, then you're playing a video game type a campaign, and that's fine. It's just important to know where you are coming from as a storyteller. Because see, in my way of storytelling, I don't want that kind of a burden. Because if it's literally hit the pause button and start again, then you have to figure out when they are going to be getting the training that's necessary to go from advancing level to advancing level. Because when they finish a story campaign piece and they get that boost of experience, what are they doing? What causes that lift? Is it mystical, like a video game where they just the blue blossoming light goes around them and suddenly they're advanced? If so, that's perfectly fine. In my way of thinking, they go out and they do their thing and they're adventuring and they gain their experience and then they milestone when they reach a goal point, and that milestone means they take a few minutes and breathe and decide what they're going to do next, and they're going to think about the things that they did to get better and they start practicing those new skills. So if you milestone, how much time passes at the milestone on an average? And just think about it. You don't have to answer, but okay, so they took a ship to get to the island. Good. Oh, they took a ship. Where did the ship come from? What nation? How far away is it? How many days voyage was it? Or how more? Not necessarily how much was it to get there, because you start when you got there, but how many days is it going to take to get home? Are they going home? If they're not going home, why are they staying where they are? I get you, but I'm asking for the mechanism. If they just level up, if they just arbitrarily get the glistening, sparkly lights around them, then you are playing a video game for them. That's all you are doing, is being the console, making the decisions that the computer would, and there's not a story to draw them into. What I'm trying to suggest is that it's the deeper parts that make the story yours. So if they arbitrarily just get the boost up, oh no, you're doing the opposite. You're making it easier. That's all I'm trying to say. You're making it easier. When they get done with an adventure, they're where they're going to be for a while. So, then you can relax and decide on what next part of the story you want to tell. Oh yeah, there is already a lot to learn. And I can tell you, I've got a video you might want to see that's in the Game Master's Academy, the Game Mastery Academy, that is the evolution of a Game Master. And it's actually available on my YouTube page as well. If you go to the Game Mastery Academy podcast playlist. You can actually watch the evolution of a game master, and that might help you because it gives you kind of an idea of where you are on that scale and what kind of things you can expect on your way to becoming a better game master. One of the first things as a game master, for example, is you want to try everything. Okay, so on the Sword Coast, so now you know it's Faerun, so now you know what their holiday schedule is if you want to pursue that. And you can tell how far away they are, what kind of, if you're going to, for example, want to run a trade mission. With the finishing of this mission, you might have a lot of items that they want to go and sell someplace else. Now you can figure out where the next trade mission is going to be. It also puts it in a framework of what location you want if you want to use their mechanism. If you don't, if you're just homebrewing, then the only matter is what story do you want to tell next and how do you get them from point A to point B? How do you get them from the story they're in to that story? And that's why I was asking about where they're from, what their connection to the world is if they are just adventurers in a video game kind of environment, and at the end of the game, at the end of the session, they level up and advance because they hit a milestone. What's keeping them from going and jumping to another person's game in another person's realm and playing another story? You have to have built a story, a compelling reason for them to stick. And so the way to do that is to take into account where they're from. And it doesn't take a lot of work. It just takes realization that there needs to be some story that you develop about how they're there. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So if you have a bit of backstory from each player, go back through. I don't know if you've heard the term retcon. It's a retrieval process. You go through. It's a retroactive continuity. It's you go back and look at all the pieces that they gave you, and then you knit them together to make the backstory. And it's best if you're able to do that with your own story behind. So if you've built that backstory and you've stitched them all together, then you should be able to look at that story and say, okay, well, they did all of these things up till this point. Why are they sticking together? What brought them together? What glued them together? If you can see what that glue is, then you use the same glue to stick on the next part you want to add. And again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be on the Sword Coast. It can be anywhere, but you have to have a way of linking them. And if you're going to use Sword Coast wherever you want and put this adventure wherever you want as far as that's concerned, then you do a linking between them. And having done that, then you can tell, when I ask the question, where are they from, you're going to be able to say, well, they've come together at this point because of this action, and they are staying together because of this condition, and they're going to stay together as long as this applies. Okay, are they the pilgrims? Or are they just messengers delivering the letter? Because if they're not part of the pilgrimage, then they are just deliverers of messages, which makes them a courier. And it doesn't really anchor them into the setting. Whereas if they are here as a pilgrim, and they are actually taking part of the emotional and religious experience of being at this holy place or whatever, that gives you an anchor. That's what you see what I'm saying. That's the nuanced difference between those two. So you have to kind of figure out which way that is. If they're connected together by a story, and the story has an anchor piece to it, you use that. Okay. And they're protecting the dragon egg because of religion or just moral compunction? Because again, if it's a religious thing and the dragon egg is the chosen of the dragon, by the way, I have to tell you the irony here is thick as you can't imagine. There, in my campaign, the last big bad was also known as the Chosen, and it was a person who was playing as a dragonborn who had in their mind that they were going to become the first of dragons. They were going to actually be the first dragon back on my world in 5,000 years. And the party got to them just as they'd finished their transmogrification to become a dragon and had to slay the beast. So the funny thing about you ritually protecting a dragon's egg nests really well with at the other end of the story. The dragon ends up being the bad guy. So that's funny. So yeah, that's a that's a brain bender right there. So, but if the point is that whatever anchor was used to bring them to this point in the story is probably your best bet on maintaining that story anchor going forward, simply finding new ways to extend it. So okay, is it their problem? Is the defeat of the big bad directly an onus upon them, or is it coincidental? If it's coincidental, then it's totally under your control to release them. If it's a compunction of the story that they must defeat the big bad, then I need a better understanding of what their agenda is in defeating him. Are they actually, again, religiously bound to the story that they're trying to fulfill this from a moral standpoint, or are they just being the good guys? Because the way you say it is that they can't safely leave until the big bad is destroyed. Right. No, that's what they should be doing. But are the players doing that because of altruism, because it's the right thing to do, or because it's going to get them paid, or it's going to be safer? What's their reason? You have to look for what you can use to anchor them, because by just telling them that they have to, that's called, in modern parlance, that's a railroad. David Group, that was right. No, I get. Let me try this a different way. I see what you're saying, because I feel the way you're feeling. Okay, so they are aware of what he is doing. But I'm asking you if you're aware of what they are doing. What are the players doing other than reacting? What is their motive? If their only motive is to feed your story angle, then you take your foot off the gas pedal for a second and find out what they would do otherwise. So if they want to try to run a risk on leaving the island, that means that they want to leave the island. If you say, yeah, there's a possibility of leaving the island, but it's really risky, would you rather do that, or would you rather, go find out why it's getting the bones? You find out which way they want to go, and in doing so, you're able to figure out which direction to guide the story. Because as a director, you don't have to do just what the module says you must do. Okay, find a book. Are there any that may have foundered? Are there any notes that you could suggest that one of them wrecked off the shoreline that they could actually go and repair? Maybe they know somebody who's a boatwright who's been secretly building one to escape for a long time that just isn't finished. Maybe there's one that foundered, but it's out beyond the reef, and so they'd have to actually swim out to get it. These are all things that could happen. But what do you want them to do, and what do they want to do? And what I'm getting at is you kind of have to get a feel for what the players are advocating for. Because if they're invested in the story of killing the big bad, then they will ignore all your boat stuff. Anyway, you could say, yeah, you can leave the island anytime you want, and they'd still stay because they are now invested in beating the big bad. But if they're not invested in the big bad, you need to make sure that you're able to find ways to make them. Exactly. Exactly. Homebrew it. In other words, the book says they must beat the bad bad before they leave. But if the players are not intentionally trying to beat the big bad and you don't feel like you're getting them to go in that direction without having to push them, just pull your foot off the gas pedal and see what else they would rather do. This mechanism, by the way, is something I call bubble tech. The idea is this: yes, you want them to have to fight the big bad. That's the reason why you put them on the island in the first place, is the big bad needs to be stopped. But if the players don't think they want to defeat the big bad, by all means let them go in another direction, only make them feel the outcome of their decisions. So if they sail away from the island and they're in really stormy weather, maybe they do shipwreck. Then you got a great adventure on its own, having them survive being shipwrecked. You know? Or if you want to throw a sea monster at them, then throw a sea monster at them. But the point is that they will then get the message of what they should be doing, because they might feel that that was a bad omen, that the monster was out to get them because of it. Maybe the big bad threw the monster at them, etc., etc. So don't, yeah. When I'm saying do these different things or making these suggestions, I'm only opening the door to the possibility of what you might want to do, because your story is not necessarily what's in the book. It might be. It might be. You may want to actually kill the bad guy. But if it is, then you want them to give themselves enough rope, so to speak, so that they'll be hoisted on their own petard and do what you ask them without it being pushed. Because in the world today, the people who are players look at adventuring and they see one of two things. They either see a railroad that says we don't have any choice, we must do this thing, or they see a sandbox where they can do anything they want. And there's a difference. There's a place in between there where you have a story you want to tell. The players have lives they want to live, and you find a meet in between them. There you go. Maybe the big bad's got a point. So, yeah, exactly. So you want to be processing constantly. If you're a game master, the real key to game mastery is to learn to be a duck. If you may have heard this about a duck before, if you look at a duck on the water, they look calm as glass on the surface, but they're paddling like mad underneath. So as a game master, you've got to come across as, yeah, everything's fine. This is exactly where the story's supposed to be going. Yeah, I got it. You're right. This is a bad thing or whatever. And then, at the same time, you got to be able to push and get them to go the direction you want. And so the trick there is to determine how best to make that push feel like something they decided. And again, every player in the world is now screaming at their screens if they're listening to this going, "You're a madman, Jonathan. People don't act that way." So, yes, exactly, Strictly. That's right where we started this conversation. When you first came on, you said that. And I totally agree with you. I totally dig it when my players take the story in directions I don't expect, and then I get to figure out how to make it happen. A great example of that is one of the skills that I teach. I call engineering prophecy, and the point here is that you create a methodology so that you create a prediction in story, in game for the players to consume. That story that you've created, that lore, that myth, that legend, is a foretelling of something that you know as a game master that this group of players is going to do. So, for example, you know that if you chose to, they would defeat this monster. So if you put in a prophecy something that says this monster will not fall until the party has reached some objective, then the players are not going to even see that they are the ones to solve it. They think, well, we're never going to be there, so we must not have to worry about it. And therefore, they'll take their focus off of it. Then, as they play through, you'll remember that's part that you've already intended for them. And so when they get to the point of achieving those very things that you said they would do, then surprise, the dragon reappears or the monster reappears, and now they have to deal with it. And they go, holy crap, it's been us all along. We could have stopped it way back then. So, actually you can. You can absolutely predict what a player is going to do. You can almost always predict that the players are going to do the thing that you are least expecting them to do. And you generally know which of your players are the aggressors, which ones are going to get into fights. You generally know which ones of them stand back and stay out of trouble. One of my favorite traps is something called a malingerer's trap, and there's always inevitably that one guy who's traveling with the group who stays behind the group 30 or 40 feet because he knows he doesn't want to get caught in some kind of weird trap. So the party gets ahead of him a ways, and they get into danger, and then they get clear of the danger, and he comes running up, and he wants to be part of the treasure. So a malingerer's trap is a trap that triggers 30 feet down the hallway, but does not activate there. Instead, it activates back here. One of the best ones I can think of is a passageway where the floor is a long bamboo structure, and it's suspended over empty space. So as long as they're walking this direction and the party member is malingering back here, his weight is keeping them counterbalanced. So as they walk forward, they're perfectly fine for a long distance until they get to the trigger point. Then they go down immediately, and he gets catapulted to the ceiling. And especially if what really works is that you describe to them a set of spikes, and so he'll stay behind the spikes. But the whole point is that the catapult action will throw him forward. And so. Yep. Okay, so NPCs are a special case. I just did this video the other day. When you're talking about NPCs, there's actually 3 or 4 different kinds of NPCs you might be talking about. An NPC, a non-player character, can fulfill a bunch of different roles. The first one is the one that truly is NPC to me, and that's a non-essential, non-player character. And any NPC, literally is any NPC, that doesn't fit either of the other 2 characteristics. So these are your stable boys. They're the waitresses at the bar. These are the random wino on a corner. If you think about the movie Free Guy, these are the people that Guy always was talking to in the local game that had their 1 or 2, 3 things that they would say, but they weren't actually interacting with the players at all. Second kind of PC, or second kind of NPC, are story PCs. And these are the ones that by necessity have to be there because they have an element in the story that must be conveyed to the players. And those you have to be careful with, because if you make it too obvious, then the players will already know which ones of these to go to, and they won't spend any time dealing with the other NPCs in the book, and they won't get the full experience of playing in the roleplay experience because they will have already picked out min-maxing. I'm taking that guy, and we're going to talk to that guy, we're going to talk to that guy, and we're done. We don't need anything else. We've got the information from those 3 guys. So instead, you have your story PCs, but they have a time limit. You've already planned. They will not talk to them or won't give any information until the 3rd time the party comes to visit them, or the 4th time the party interacts with them. You choose that number beforehand, and that's the only time they will talk about the part that they need to give the players. Otherwise, they'll just have, shoot the breeze conversations. And when you do that, when you add that air of mystery on who really is supposed to be talked to in a game, you cause the players to, by amplification, need to talk to everyone, and so therefore you'll get more social interaction and more NPC interaction. And that key makes it feel less like a video game. They're not looking around for the NPC with the question mark over his head going, oh, that's the guy I need to talk to because he's important. No, every single NPC should be walking around, if you will, with a question mark over their head, and they've got their 1 or 2 lines that they say and a question that they might answer. And because you spread it around to all of them, eventually the players have to interact with the majority of them, which gives you, as a game master, more satisfactory interaction. The players have more to chew on. Maybe one of the NPCs only will speak to the woman in the party, or maybe they only will speak to the person that's a spellcaster. That's not written down in any book. That's not written down in the rules of the NPC, but it's something that I would do in a game to make sure that the interaction feels more homogeneous and more natural, because you want the play to be the actual roles being participated in. Because it's not ROLE play. It's not roll initiative, roll attack, roll skills checks. That's integral. That's part of the game, but that is not the game. The game is I'm playing this type of a character, and so I'm doing the actions as if I was this character, and therefore I'm going to be talking with this person as if I was that person. And so you're able to get them to play what the game really is. So with that, then the third kind of NPCs are RPCs. And this goes back to why I asked about where they're from. If the party of adventurers are from this island and they've been here for a long period of time, then they would know some locals. They would know some people that live here. And if they know people that live here, they're people that the party will have come to trust. And therefore, you can share information to them through other NPCs, to the players, and know that it's more trustworthily accepted. Well, okay, but you already said you have their backstory. So I'm just saying that you should weave together how they got to be where they are now, and then from that you should be able to build. And sure, ask them more. Yeah, you're right. And the trick there is you need to just when they say they give you information and they say, okay, that's what I've got. And you say yes, tell me more. Yes. Tell me more until you get the pieces you need to make the story work. Because if the pieces that they're trying to put together are only trying to, as you described earlier, if they are only trying to min-max their outcomes, then they're not going to be able to fill that in, and you'll be able to push back until they do. And when they do give you more information, then you have the anchors and the hooks you need to make their character part of the scene. And that's really the important point, is that you've got to bring them into alignment with the scene in the movie, so to speak, of the game. Home name? If they're all disparate, I would think that the answer would be, from what you said, yeah, they're all staying together in the back room of Charlie the fisherman, and they got here a month ago, and they've been hanging out at Charlie's place when they're not on the job. And so they've been using his resources to sharpen their blades and wax their bowstrings or whatever. And therefore, you as a game master can build the relationship with Charlie a little bit more, have an encounter with Charlie that's got nothing to do with fighting. It's got nothing to do with anything else other than, guys, you've been staying here for a while, and I haven't really asked for rent. But there's some things that you could do for me, if you wouldn't mind, that would really help around here. And then you can send them on smaller, non-essential quest-like effects so that they are now integrating with your stuff, the stuff you're creating, not just the campaign as defined. Does that make sense? Okay, is a collective group religious? Are they part of the Pilgrim's pathway? Is that one of the reasons why they came here? If they are, then you have to ask, why are the religious people letting them stay? Are the religious people praying for them? Because if they are, then you've got another kind of hook, and that is NPCs can also be side characters to the campaign characters. So therefore, maybe one or two of them have built an affinity for the children of these villagers. So that all you have to do to draw them into your story is to put those children at risk in the game by saying, oh, they went and found a thing and now their family is being bothered by a whatever. And so, yeah, so therefore if they are following or worshiping the dragon kind, and the players are actually actively trying to hunt and kill a dragon, that might be a problem. Or, conversely, if they're only killing the bad dragons, maybe they feel like you're serving their god. And if so, they'll see the party as heroic angelic figures and therefore treat them that way. All I'm trying to say is all of these things that we're talking about, every single one of them is a way of anchoring the players into the meta story, what it is you're trying to tell that is beyond just what's in the module. Yep, I got it. My question, though, is what are the players doing in reference to these people? Are they aware of the differences of these groups? Are they sympathetic, apathetic, adverse? What's their position compared to them? If they're sympathetic, then just simply say, hey, yeah, that guy was starting to retire. He has vanished. He was over in that forest, and we haven't seen him in a couple days. Could you go check on him? Those are ways to get the players to move in a direction you want them to go, without them seeing it as a railroad. And it doesn't even have to take them out of the comfort zone of where they are, because you make it something that can happen locally. Could be simple like a cave-in. Could be they're actually just out exploring and got lost. There's a million different kinds of adventures that you could have them go on that fit your desires as a game master, and yet draws them into the same story you're already running. So. And why did the NPC let them stay in his house if they stole from him? Is that a moral decision? Is it a turn your other cheek kind of attitude? Is it a I'm going to get it back from you because I'm going to be really kind until you give it back? What's the agenda? Oh, even worse. Okay, so now you can. This is. I do an entire episode on how to handle a murder hobo, and this group sounds like it's headed down the path towards murder hobos. If you are staying with someone and you steal their stuff, I don't care whether you make it look like somebody else did or not. If you steal their stuff, you are immoral. If they are here on a quest involving goodness, and they're supposed to be defeating the bad guy, then it would make sense that they are having problems with the bad guy. They should be having run-ins where they are having really poor luck, because they should not be getting rewarded for the stuff they took until either it gets returned or somebody relents and tells and repays. Because if you're allowing bad things to happen in your campaign and the players are supposed to be the good guys, then you are besmirching the name of good guys everywhere, and the players should have to be. Oh, I don't care. I don't care whether the NPC knows. You know. You're the storyteller. You're the powers of good and evil. You are the eyes of the gods and the devils. You are the eyes. It's your playground, and if your playground has fundamentally bullies on it, which it sounds like, it's your duty to handle the bullies. And it doesn't matter whether anybody found out, because the whole point of the concept of deity is that there is omniscience, and you are the person who's telling the story, so they had to tell you they were stealing it, so therefore you know they stole it, so you are already in a position to be an arbiter. Again, it doesn't fine. If you want, again, you want the poisoner to be the one that takes them out in straight pyrrhic revenge, that's fine. But my point is that even if they stole from the most innocent person, matter of fact, that makes it worse, right? If they stole from the person that would be able to do nothing against them, then your position as storyteller, it's impugned upon you, it's pressed upon you as a storyteller to either. But you have to look at it which way. I suppose this really comes down to which kind of game master are you? Because if you are a sandbox game master, then you should stand on the sidelines. There should not be any punishment. You should reward them for their theft. You should grant them benefits for their cleverness and their ability to hide everything, because that's what a sandbox does, because it doesn't care. If, on the other hand, you have any story ethics at all, then you need to immediately nip that attitude and that play style in the bud. Otherwise, you are fomenting problems that will haunt you for years as a game master. So you do not want to let them, you do not want to leave in the hands of the players whether or not, you certainly don't want to leave it to the dice whether or not the players get their comeuppance. If they are playing in a way that's fomenting in any way illegal, unethical, immoral positions as a game master. Unless you're a sandboxer, then you need to find ways to rectify or at least hold accountable. Now, I'm going to get myself in trouble on that one. There are game masters that would totally disagree with me because let the dice roll where they may, hack master rules. But in all the years that I've been playing, the worst thing that can happen is that players get away with criminal behavior, because as soon as they get away with criminal behavior, pretty soon they're doing far worse, and you as a storyteller are being caught letting them. And if you do stop them, you have two choices. You either stop them in story with an explanation on why it was a bad behavior and why it was punished and why it was challenged, or you punish them at a whim, and then they see the gods as capricious and they don't trust your judgment as a storyteller. So it's really what you want to get out of it. Okay. Then you've got if you got the plan figured out, and you know how you're going to get the compensation or the recompense against the players for their bad behavior. I just want to make sure that it doesn't go so far down the line that the players are seeing you as rather milquetoast and that they can do immoral and unethical acts and get away with it. Because if they've stolen from one person and you haven't, because you would think there would be authorities, right? Somebody's going to come in and try to help the guy that lost his stuff get his stuff back, and that investigation should lead somewhere. If it's competent, then there should be at least some way magically to determine that the party is involved and implicate them that way. And if there isn't, if it's a Wild West kind of environment, then there certainly are people in the community that are going to be watching out for said person and his belongings. And if the players eventually reveal something that was in that collection among their things, then the NPC will discover it that way. So it can go either way. My only point is you don't want to ever let the players get away with horribly bad things, because if you do, then they. As long as the players know about it, then yeah, exactly. So, well, I have rambled on for almost 3 hours, and so I'm going to be trying to get some writing done tonight. As I said, I write modules for a income stream as well. So I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much, Strigley, for being here. Make sure, if you can, subscribe to the channel, like this video, follow us on Facebook at NycosRPG, and check out our YouTube page at NycosRPG as well. And I would love to see you again at our next show. We're on every night at 11 o'clock Pacific time, Monday through Saturday. We're here every day. So I will be here again tomorrow. This is Jonathan Albin, and I'm taking off for the night. Thank you so much. See you soon.